Hello and welcome to another session of Legendary Column Lectures here on YouTube. As always, I am your host, Sheku Putka Kamara. In today's edition, we're going to talk about the standard format, if you like, some appreciable formats of writing dissertation proposals, and we'll also shed some light on the necessary chapters that should be taken into consideration when you talk writing a research proposal. Stay with me for the next few minutes. One of the things I would always say is the fact that writing a dissertation of any nature is always something incredible, especially if you have enough interest in terms of setting the agenda. But like always, writing the dissertation starts with putting together a proposal. One thing that has to be taken into consideration, and one thing I would always tell students or writers, is the fact that if you're having an institution, your responsibility is to go by the set standards of the institution. And so today, we're basically going to talk about some of the essentials, if you like, the fundamentals in putting together a proposal of any nature. So first things first, you have to design a research topic. Now, designing a research topic is something that is always interesting. Now, whilst that may always work, it is always advisable to, however, create a topic on your own. Writing is fun if you're getting the directives. And this is where the efforts of supervisors are really important. A student or researcher may want to write on a particular topic, but maybe the area is not researchable or maybe the topic is not complete. So it is always essential to have an approval from a designated supervisor or superior, if you like, before you start to put the work together. Because when you miss the topic from the word go, chances are you are not going to get some credible data. And the argument about research, among other things, is the fact that every research is required to inculcate some concept of validity. You do not want to embark on a research of any nature where invalidity takes center stage. So as always, before putting together any topic, try as best as possible to get approval before you go ahead with the proposal. Now, having sorted out the topic, being that it has been approved, one of the things that should be included in your proposal is an introduction. Now, the introduction is an important aspect for any research. So the question is, what are you writing on? And why is it necessary for us to have an understanding of what you're writing on? This is always essential. You do not want to assume that people have full knowledge about what you're writing on. You do not want to assume that people have an understanding of what you're doing. So when you write the introduction, you have to be clear on the purpose of your study, because that is what gives people an understanding of what you're doing and why it should make sense for them to continue to understand what you're doing. Now, having done with the introduction, another vital aspect that should include in any proposal is actually what is known as the background of the study. The background of the study is likely to have historical perspectives. If you're having a topic of any nature, the background should explain some essential concepts from that topic. So even if someone never had an idea about what you're writing on, when he or she reads the background, he or she would have an understanding of maybe the institution or essential concept or key terms from your topic that you're actually writing on. So from the background, you can also include scholarly perspectives about people that have written in line with what you were writing on. Because remember, almost every material is available online. But when you do thorough research, you would understand that a range of people would have written on a range of perspectives. You now have a responsibility of going over what other people have done and to improve on that which you are writing. From the background, the next thing we are going to talk about is the statement of the problem, otherwise known as a problem statement. Now, the argument in the research is that you are embarking on a research because a problem is in existence. The question is, what do you intend to do to solve that problem? So in your statement of the research problem, you clearly have to state why you are embarking on the research and the problem that you seek to solve. Tell us what you think the issue is with your subject matter and how best you can possibly suggest things to improve on that. Because at the end of the day, you are embarking on the research because you want to change something for the better on a positivist note. If everything is well and good, perhaps you have no reason to embark on suggesting what should be done or what should not be done. But when you go ahead with any problem statement, you want to tell us why a problem is in existence and why it should be solved for any kind of research. So from the problem statement, we go to research questions. In research, it is not all about your opinion. The voices, the views and experiences of other people truly matter. That is why research questions are really important. There are no standard practices in terms of the amount of questions you need for a specific dissertation. But for the proposal, 2 or 3 questions are okay. Some institutions can call for 4 or more, even 5. But at the end of the day, the questions must be derived on the basis of the topic. And this is something I would always talk about. There are people that would attempt to state research questions that may have little or no bearing to the research topic. And that is where people tend to miss it from the word go. Every research proposal is expected to go in line with the research topic. And that is why I'm saying always seek approval before you start the work. The research questions are things you're going to ask to get answers. Now I'm going to talk about all of the procedures in the dissertation itself from chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But from the research questions, you are going to ask questions to people to get answers. The answers you get are things you're going to find in chapter 4 under presentation of findings or data analysis. The same questions you submit as research proposals are the same questions you're going to use for chapters 1 and chapters 3, where you're talking research methodology. Because essentially, the chapter 1 covers the introduction. So, always make sure that your questions are derived on the basis of your topic and that they should be closely connected. From the questions, there's always a need for the rationale, the justification, or the significance of the study. I always ask people, if what you're doing is not important, how best would that make sense to some other people? The justification of your research should suggest to people why you are doing this research. What sense does it make? What impact will it create? What set of researchers are going to use your data or information for possible other studies? So always justify, because in the end, it is your justification that showcases the significance of whatever you're writing. Now, from the justification, the next step is to go for the aim and objectives of the research. The aim of every research is to state the focus, otherwise the purpose of the research. What are you doing? The aim of this research is to blah, blah, blah. You state that. The objectives are the things that help you to actualize the aim. So let us say you have an aim of doing a research on why human beings lack patience, for example. If that is your aim, objectives are now the things that assess why human beings lack patience, if at all they lack patience. Because remember, a research is a fundamental assumption. When the study comes to an end, that is what guarantees validity or invalidity. And so those are things that should be taken into consideration. The next thing that should be taken into consideration is the hypothesis. Now, in the social sciences and the humanities, the hypothesis should actually predict a relationship between 2 or more variables. In the simplest of terms, the hypothesis is an assumption that if we do this, we're going to solve this. Now, remember, in your proposal, you have indicated the statement of the problem. You are sure that a problem is in existence. For the hypothesis suggests to us what is going to possibly solve that problem. You are making an assumption. It is a supposition that if we do this, we can achieve this. From the hypothesis, and depending on the institution, others could go for one, others could go for two or more, hypotheses. Like I would always say, go in for what the institution truly desires. And sometimes I would always say a supervisor is always right. Go by the set standards. One of the challenges, and I would like to say this, is the fact that there are some institutions that would require students to submit proposals or write dissertations when perhaps there is no standard framework, when perhaps there is no format. If you're going to have different formats for a particular set of students, that is going to be troubling. If you're going to have 10 students and then you have 10 formats, it is also going to be troubling. Every institution is expected to work on a standard proposal format and a standard dissertation format. Where that is the case, the student only has a responsibility of going by that format. If there's any challenge, the student has a responsibility of working with the supervisor, just so that things are made easier. So from the hypothesis, another important aspect in your proposal is the scope and limitation. Now, every research is expected to go in line with scope and limitation for essential reasons. The scope is always the broader perspective of the study, whilst the limitations are the specifics of the study. If you're going to do a study on the role of the media is a broader scope. But when you say radio, television, you are limited to a specific medium. When you now call the name of the radio station or the name of the TV, you are limiting it to a specific radio or TV. So that is why the scope and limitation aspect is always important. Now, this is a research proposal, so always have to take into consideration your research methodology, where you explain the design. Now, three kinds of research designs exist. The simplest of terms, a qualitative research is always descriptive and analytical, and it could make use of instruments like interviews, content analysis, focus group discussion, or observation. On the other hand, you would have the quantitative design, which is always statistical and numerical, and it could make use of instruments like a questionnaire, sometimes even the content analysis, the survey or experiment. If you're going to blend the two, meaning you're going to have some elements of qualitative and quantitative design, then you're going to use a design known as a triangulation, otherwise known as a mixed method, meaning you're going to have a bit of qualitative and quantitative data. You need to explain the kind of design, because if we go through your proposal, we should understand the kind of design you want to adopt and why you want to adopt that design. Now, when you're done with the research methodology aspect in your proposal, the next thing is to talk about the theoretical base. The research theory is a proposition expounded by a range of scholars. Every research must be in line with a particular theory. If you're going to talk about anything, theories basically explain the relationship between what you are writing on and sometimes between the variables. So, if you're going to write about anything, depending on the school structure, you would have some formats that would require that you use more than two theories. Other scholars would suggest that you just go in for one theory. At the end of the day, whatever the case is, the theory has to be closely related to the research, so we know whether the relationship is symbiotic. And then lastly, the potential references. In research, in academia generally, plagiarism is something that has to be avoided. And this is something that is always of importance. You would have people who just do some surreptitious obtaining of information using clandestine means, or sometimes just subterfuge, copy and paste or what have you. Those are things that strongly have to be negated insofar as academia is concerned. Referencing is key. If you obtain information from a textbook, online material, citation is important. Whether it is in-text citation, where you just state the person's first or last name and the year of publication, or referencing formats, whether AP or Harvard, where you start with the surname, the name, the year of publication, and the title, it is always important into consideration. Now, when your proposal would have been approved, the format of writing the dissertation is also important. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining all of what should be taken into consideration, but I'll just give a tip, and then we can always advance discussions by asking questions, and then we'll make follow-up lectures on, similar subjects.